Hello and welcome to CTC and Me, insights, updates, and discussions on teacher certification and licensing from the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing. I am Michael Gaby-Gross from the Certification Division of the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. We bring you a new podcast that will include discussions on teacher credentialing and teacher preparation in California. This podcast is mostly aimed at enlightening our partners in the field. However, there will be more than a few episodes that can be shared with candidates and established educators. We've got an exciting new show for you today, a very special show, a show different than any other we've done so far. Today, we're going to talk about assignments. And instead of me trying to learn all I can from the assignment folks and passing the information to you, the listener, I thought, why not just bring them in? This will be a very important episode for our listeners who work at employing agencies, as we'll be talking about some of the basics of assignments. Think back on the list of great interviewers: Barbara Walters, Larry King, Johnny Carson, Oprah Winfrey. Well, get ready to add a new name to that list, Michael Gaby-Gross. And on this special episode, we'll have a live Q&A with Ann Harris and Jonna Barlupi. That's right, we're all recording in the same room together. Ann, Jonna, welcome to CTC and Me, and thank you for taking some time today to talk with me. To kick off this episode, let's start with introductions.
Hi, I am Ann Harris, and I have devoted my career to education in various ways. I started as a program director for preschools and infant through school age programs for many years. I worked at the California Department of Education and state special schools. Here at the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, I am the Senior Licensing Manager of the Assignment Monitoring and Regulations Program. My role includes supporting credential analysts with guidance related to assignment monitoring, overseeing statewide monitoring, including managing its system and the display of related outcomes, collaborating with educational partners, as well as managing regulatory changes that affect the agency.
Hey there, I'm Jonna Barlupi, and like Ann, my experience in the education field has been diverse. I started my career as a high school teacher and then transitioned to credentialing at Placer County Office of Education. I've been with the Commission's assignment monitoring program since 2022. I collaborate with Ann to fulfill the agency's statutory assignment monitoring responsibilities. I also work closely with state board authorized charter schools to ensure that their teachers are appropriately authorized.
What is assignment monitoring and why is it important?
Assignment monitoring is the process of reviewing assignments to ensure that educators are legally authorized. Prior to placing an educator in a role that involves providing instruction or services to students in California public schools, the local educational agency, often referred to as the LEA, must ensure that they hold the appropriate credential for the content they're teaching or the service they're providing. An entity serving as their monitoring authority must check that their LEAs have fulfilled their statutory responsibility. Annual monitoring of educator assignments in CalSAAS gives us a statewide picture of the landscape of California's educators. It identifies entities that may need training or support related to the complex laws that govern educator assignments, and it also identifies areas of shortage. You asked why this is important, and perhaps most importantly, its goal is to ensure that educators are prepared to teach in their assignments, which contributes to student equity statewide, as students being taught by educators who are not appropriately authorized are not receiving the highest quality education.
What are some important terms in the world of educator assignments? For example, what is an assignment and what is a misassignment?
An assignment, in the simplest terms, describes what a public education employee is actually doing. It is the placement of an individual in a teaching or services position in one of California's public schools. If the individual's duties align with a credential issued by the Commission, then they are considered an educator serving in a certificated assignment. Due to various laws, an educator must be legally authorized for their assignment. A misassignment, on the other hand, occurs when an educator is not legally authorized. Educators providing instruction or services in California public schools are required by law to meet certain standards and have related preparation. A misassignment occurs when an educator does not hold the appropriate teaching or services license issued by the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, and they're not authorized by any flexibility in the law. A simple example of a misassignment would be if an educator who holds a credential that authorizes teaching English content is assigned to teach a math course instead.
Who's responsible for ensuring educators are legally authorized?
Although districts and schools could be liable for misassignments, there are a few laws that place responsibility to appropriately assign on specific individuals. The three mentioned in Education Code are principal administrators, district superintendents, and governing board members. A school district's governing board is required by law in Education Code 44830 to hire individuals that legally meet the certification requirements for a given assignment. Additionally, the school district's superintendent also bears significant responsibility, as Education Code 35035 states that the superintendent must verify that each employee in a certificated position is appropriately authorized. The guiding statute for assignment monitoring is Education Code 44258.9, which focuses on educator assignments, relevant data, and the system that we use to monitor, called CalSAAS. This section of statute describes how assignment monitoring must take place, including the hierarchy of the entities that oversee monitoring for the various types of schools throughout the state. This section provides that the entity that oversees educator assignments of a school or district is its monitoring authority. We often refer to the monitoring authority as the MA. For a traditional or non-charter school, the MA is the corresponding County Office of Education, or COE. For charter schools, it is the school's chartering authority, which could be a school district, County Office of Education, or the State Board of Education. The MA plays a vital role in reviewing certificated assignments to ensure educators are appropriately authorized, as they are required per this education code to monitor their LEA's assignments.
You mentioned CalSAAS. What is it and how is it used?
CalSAAS is an acronym that stands for the California Statewide Assignment Accountability System. It is a partially automated system that those in the field use to complete annual assignment monitoring. The California Department of Education, or CDE, and the Commission on Teacher Credentialing have a data sharing agreement which allows us to use data submitted by LEAs to complete assignment monitoring. California's public education assignments in transitional kindergarten through grade 12 are reported by LEAs to the CDE via their CalPAD system, and this stands for California Longitudinal Pupil Achievement Data System. CDE provides the data to the Commission, and CalSAAS compares the educators' assignments to their credential authorizations that were held on census date. If there's a mismatch, then the system spits out what we call an exception. Exceptions are not inherently bad or undesirable, as they indicate only potential misassignments. These questionable assignments generate exceptions because the system was unable to identify a credential that covers what was reported, and this indicates that additional review is necessary. The exceptions are displayed in the system for the LEA and its monitoring authority to review and determine if it was a legal assignment or not. The LEA and MA have 90 days to collaborate to complete this process. The LEA provides information about these assignments by submitting a justification, or what we call a determination. Some of the determinations indicate that the assignment was legally authorized through other means, and this basically means besides their credential. The monitoring authority examines what was submitted and can approve the determination, change the determination on their own, or they can ask the LEA for further clarification. After the 90 calendar day timeline concludes, the cycle then closes and our unit finalizes the data, releases the reports, and publishes the findings on the Commission's data dashboards. The final data is also returned to CDE for its federal reporting and for posting on its website as well.
How can an LEA determine if an educator may serve in an assignment? How can an LEA tell if someone is, what I've heard you both say around the water cooler, appropriately or legally authorized?
That's a great question, Mike. So the authorization that an educator needs to hold for an assignment depends on a variety of factors, like the setting, course content, grade level, and student population. A credential authorization issued by us, the Commission, represents the preparation and experience the educator has that qualifies them to teach in specific assignments. So, for example, in a self contained setting, most often found in elementary schools, the teacher is responsible for teaching all or most subjects to one group of students in their classroom. For this type of assignment, the LEA needs to verify that the teacher holds an authorization that states that they can provide instruction in a self contained setting. The currently issued Commission document for this is called the Multiple Subject Teaching Credential. Let's look at the other instructional settings. The first one is Career Technical Education, and this is where the content is based on Career Technical Education, or CTE, standards and curriculum. The second one is Child Development, and this basically means preschool and before and after school programs. On the other side of the spectrum is Adult Education, and this is classes organized primarily for adults. Then we have English Learner Assignments, and this is services for students whose native language is not English. And then finally, Special Education. All of these settings require specific credentials or permits, but we'll discuss special education in more depth. This setting can be complicated, but basically, an educator serving in this setting provides instruction or services to students with disabilities. To serve as a teacher of record in a special education setting, the teacher's authorization needs to align with the grades or ages, support needs, and primary disability areas of the students in the class. Let's examine one other setting in a bit more detail. Often in high schools, you will see an educator teaching one subject area to several different groups of students. This is called a departmentalized setting and requires a single subject authorization that aligns with the primary course content. So, for example, if the course content is math, then the educator needs to hold a math authorization, or they can be placed on a local assignment option if all requirements are satisfied.
Can you explain what a local assignment option is?
Yes, I can, Mike. A local assignment option is another avenue available to LEAs to legally assign educators in certificated assignments. They are flexibility within Education Code and Title V regulations that allow LEAs to place educators in an assignment for which they do not hold the appropriate commission-issued authorization, provided that the educator has knowledge or experience that qualify them based on the statutory or regulatory language. It's important to point out that prior to assigning an educator on an LEO, an LEA must first try to recruit a fully credentialed educator or an intern credential holder, as per what we call the hiring hierarchy, and you can read this in Education Code section 44225.7. Educators serving on an LEO are considered legally authorized for their assignment if all statutory and regulatory requirements have been satisfied. A few other important things to note about LEOs. The first is that LEOs in teaching assignments require a full teaching credential. The second is that the educator must consent to the assignment. And finally, LEOs are used entirely at the discretion of the local level and are not under the purview of the Commission.
If an LEA finds that an educator is not legally authorized, how would they fix it?
Well, there are a variety of ways. The LEA may choose to remove the educator and replace them with another appropriately authorized educator. Aside from that scenario, basically there are two options. Either earn a commission issued document with the appropriate authorization, or if applicable, they can be assigned based on a local assignment option if all requirements are satisfied. Let's look at the first method in more detail. The type of document that should be applied for depends on the specifics of the assignment and which documents, if any, the educator already holds. Let's quickly look at an example. The educator holds a multiple subject teaching credential, but wants to teach departmentalized music. Since they already hold another general education credential, they may qualify for the General Education Limited Assignment Permit, or GLAP. Some other common emergency permits that are utilized to correct misassignments are the Provisional Internship Permit, or PIP, the Short-Term Staff Permit, or STIP, the Special Education Limited Assignment Permit, or CLAP, or finally, a Variable Term Waiver. An educator can also earn an authorization that is not an emergency document, such as another full credential authorization, or, if applicable, a supplementary or subject matter authorization. Those are quite complex as there are 5 kinds that authorize different curriculum or student grade levels. In the show's notes, we'll provide our webpage for correction options and the webpage about the supplementary and subject matter authorizations.
If an LEA staff needs assistance with correcting a misassignment, who do they contact?
Staff at a traditional school site, for example, a principal, should contact their credentialing personnel at their school district's main office. If the district needs further guidance or clarification, then they can reach out to their county office of education for support. For charter schools, since their monitoring authority is their chartering authority, they need to direct assignment related questions to their chartering authority. However, if inquiries are not answered, then they may reach out to the county office in which their school is geographically located.
What assignment topics or areas fall under the purview of the Commission?
Because the Commission on Teacher Credentialing is the licensing agency for the state, assignments which require certification fall under the Commission's purview. Essentially, this means when the required duties of a position align with an authorization issued by the Commission. We can provide guidance on what is authorized by a Commission-issued credential, and we have a plethora of websites dedicated to this. The Assignment Monitoring Program is responsible for providing guidance regarding educator assignments and technical assistance related to using the system CalSAAS. We also collect the results of the monitoring cycle and make the data available via the CalSAAS reports and our data dashboards.
What are some frequent questions you get that are not within our purview?
This is a really good topic to discuss. So, the first category would be questions about instructional materials, curriculum standards, grades, credit, and course content, as these all fall under the purview of the California Department of Education. Therefore, we cannot review course descriptions and provide guidance on how to report the assignment in CalPADS. That would be a question for CDE's CalPADS Operations Office. Along those lines, reviewing job descriptions is the responsibility of the LEA, and consequently, we cannot help LEAs determine which non-classroom based or support code should be used to report a non-instructional assignment in CalPADS. As stated earlier, local assignment options fall outside of the Commission's purview. We have provided high-level guidance on our webpage, but ultimately, if any tricky questions arise that are not explicitly answered in the statute or regulations, then we suggest consulting with your monitoring authority and, if necessary, your legal counsel. Another frequent topic that we get questions about is English learner services. We receive questions about the difference between the various types of EL services and how to know which level a student requires. Questions of this nature fall under CDE's purview. We can answer questions related to the scope of the English learner authorizations and what they cover. And then lastly, special education assignments. Laws surrounding how students with disabilities must be served are quite complex. Many of these laws are not under the Commission's purview. However, we can provide guidance related to whether a specific authorization would allow the holder to provide instruction or services to students with a particular primary disability area.
Do you have other resources that LEAs may find useful?
Our assignment school training videos or modules are very helpful as they provide the relevant information with engaging audio and visuals, plus example scenarios. Additionally, we have tables that show which commission-issued document is required for the various settings, content, or services. We will provide our main assignments webpage, and from there, listeners can navigate to all of our different resources.
How can someone stay up to date with assignments and CalSAAS?
In the resources for this episode, we will provide the main CalSAAS webpage and the link to subscribe to the Assignment News Alert mailing list. We send out any important assignment-related updates via that email list. For example, when the next CalSAAS assignment cycle opens, we will send out a notification that will specify the timeline for that year and include items of note that are relevant for this new cycle. Our unit works hard to routinely review our current web pages with the goal of improving resources and providing additional guidance when the field has indicated to us that there's a need.
We will put links to the resources in the show notes. There will be quite a lot of them, but since assignment monitoring is one of the most important duties of the Commission, we want to make sure you have all the resources at your disposal. This was certainly a very informative episode. I know I learned a few things about assignments since I never stepped foot in your world before. Hopefully, our listeners out there have a better sense of the why behind the assignments and know where to look if you have any questions. And, Jonna, thank you so much for joining me today for this episode. I really appreciate you both taking the time to share your knowledge with us. You answered some great questions today, and I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being our most popular episode of the entire series. If people have ever had some basic assignment-related questions or are new to their role, this is a good place to start. Thank you again. One of the early goals for this podcast was to pull back the curtain a bit on what we at the CTC do and provide our colleagues in the field with guidance. It's also a place where I can have all the attention and tell more jokes outside all the avenues already available to me. Before we go, please remember that all the information in this episode is valid as of the original release date, and we encourage interested parties to review our public website for the latest information. There you will find all the information, whether you are an employer, program, educator, or aspiring teacher. You have been listening to CTC and Me, insights, updates, and discussions on teacher certification and licensing from the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing. I am Michael Gady Gross. We hope to see you next time. Thanks for listening.